I never worked harder, longer, more stressful days in my entire life than the entire year of 2020 that went right into 2021. It was gangbusters. So the truth is, by the time we got to the spring of 2022, and Debbie is the one that finally was like, I don't think I could take this anymore.
How do you build a successful real estate empire in one of Florida's most coveted coastal regions? On today's episode of Seek Go Create the Leadership Journey, we're joined by our longtime friends and seasoned real estate experts, Mike and Debbie James. With over 20 years of experience in the beautiful 38 area of the Florida Panhandle, they've recently shifted focus from managing a vacation rental company to expanding their investment portfolios and sharing their insights via YouTube and a forthcoming podcast. Having worked closely with Mike and Debbie on various projects over the last probably 20 to 25 years, and even coaching them at times through some of their ventures, we will dive into their journey from hands-on property renovations to mastering the luxury real estate market and successfully exiting a company. We'll uncover the secrets to their success and their tips for others looking to navigate the complex world of real estate investment. Mike and Debbie, good to see y'all.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Tim, good to see you too. Thanks for having us.
I know. I'm excited to be on here. One of our biggest challenges we were talking about before we hit record is to keep this to a somewhat focused and timely conversation, because we can get on some conversations and get going. And I'm sitting here working on this going, dang, we've known each other for, was that right? 25 years? We had 25 years-ish?
I think you're right. And when you said that, it was almost a sucker punch. Wow, we've known each other that long. We've been through a lot.
We've seen lots of stuff, been through a lot. We won't cover all of that here, maybe a little bit of it. The amazing thing is we're only in our early 30s that we've obviously known each other for the.
I knew I liked you.
We met you to, right? You're on stage with the mic.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. One of the things I like to do when I have couples, which is rare, I usually ask this question just like a interesting icebreaker. What do you do? But I think I'm going to let each one of you introduce the other, just say a couple things about the others. Tell you what, Debbie, Michael, you start. You introduce me to Debbie. Just introduce the audience. I know Debbie, but introduce the audience and say whatever you'd like. Just take a few seconds, minute or whatever. And then Debbie, you're going to have to follow up. So you got to say some nice stuff, Michael.
There it is. Debbie is my wife, obviously, but she is a very friendly, sassy, smart, athletic, and expert at many things business. And happy to have her as my partner, both in my personal life and our business life.
Oh,
Yeah, that was really good, Michael. I'm going to take notes on that and concise. So, all right, Debbie, your turn. Introduce the audience to Michael.
Michael is my husband, of course, and he is honestly one of the smartest people I know. He's very business savvy. He's funny. We laugh every day. He's also very athletic and my partner. And we have worked together for a while and we love that. He ran our rental company for almost 10 years and is very detail oriented and knows how to keep people motivated.
Very good. I agree, man. Both of y'all are in such tremendous ways, I would say like wicked smart in certain areas, and golfers, pickleballers, all that kind of stuff. Loving life down there. Tell everybody where y'all are currently located and just give us, each one of you can share on this, but give a little bit of a commercial for the area that you're in. So Debbie, why don't you start?
We are in Northwest Florida, our nearest town called Rosemary Beach, which is just west of Panama City Beach and east of Destin. It's called the Gulf Coast or the Emerald Coast. We have white sands and emerald green waters, and we live where people vacation is really a good description. People are happy when they're here. They're fun. And it's just a very laid back, relaxing type of lifestyle.
All right, Michael, you want to add anything to that? That was a pretty good pitch right there.
We're not very well known because it's difficult to get here via plane. There's usually layovers. So 5.5 hours from Atlanta, 4 hours from Birmingham, 7 from Nashville. We had a lot of drive to market traffic. We're the second most driven to destination in the state of Florida other than Disney. And really, truly, it is unique because of the way that the ordinance was done, where it's 50 feet, Debbie, or 4 stories. So you don't have, it's not Miami. You don't have sky rises everywhere, no commercial. It is absolutely amazing. People from all over Florida come up to vacation where we are. So it's that kind of a special, unique feel that you won't find anywhere else in Florida, let alone the United States.
And y'all went, I may have had the years wrong, but how long have y'all been there?
20 years.
2004, actually June of
Yeah.
2004.
So I just guessed at that. I said, it seems like 20 years. And I think we had met a handful of years before that. And gosh, 20, that's a long time. And I'm sure that area has changed quite a bit. It is a beautiful part of the country. And I think one of the things some people are going to want to do from this conversation is maybe reach out to one or both of you, get more information and check on some real estate in that area possibly. But I wanted to start, this was the trigger for me wanting to have this conversation with you guys. I have a lot of clients, a lot of people I work with, and it seems as if a lot of them are discussing and talking about, not that they want to get out of their business, that's not it, but they want to know what it looks like to move from maybe their business to something else, or what does it look like in the future to exit, or how do they transfer it from them to children and all this? What does the future look like? And I guess a year or two ago, we can talk about the dates on it. Y'all did something. We were working together. I guess I was coaching and helping with some things and all that. And COVID was sort of winding down, and y'all were able to do something really cool. And that was someone came in and said, "Hey, we'd like to buy." The price was really good. I thought I, I was a little bit of a naysayer. I'll go ahead and say, I said, "Really? You think we can exit?" Y'all were able to exit. So Debbie, give me a little bit of your perspective, maybe leading up to that. And then maybe I'll go over to Michael, maybe to talk some of the details of it, but just talk a little bit about where the business was as we were heading to that point.
So we had about 41 properties. We grew organically, and this is our vacation rental company. And we were considered boutique. Michael was running the company. I was doing all the accounting along with doing all of my real estate. And it's a business that just never stops. It's a hotel, like a hotel that's 24/7. Yet it really isn't 24/7, but it is 24/7. And we had a handful of employees, and trying to scale once COVID hit and hiring employees got very difficult. We couldn't get Michael out of the day to day because most of our owners were my real estate clients, and so we had the relationship, and it was just it was one of those type of things that it got to the point where the stress, the health, his health, we couldn't even have dinner without his phone going crazy, and so we just knew we couldn't keep it. It was not a sustainable business model, as you have taught us over the years.
So, Michael, take it from there and talk about your role, kind of some of the things you were doing in your day to day, and then maybe anything else as we were heading into this exit event, because I want us to spend a little bit of time here because everybody has questions about exits. It's all the time it comes up. So I do want us to dig a little bit on this. So kind of pile on a little bit there, and we'll keep going.
I'll stay on the high level just for the moment, which is that we re-engaged with UTSAM when we were about halfway through that 10-year tenure of the company. And we knew we needed help growing. Basically, I had been doing everything. If anyone's ever hosted an Airbnb, imagine you're running about 30 of them alone, literally with no employees. So I had to do all the hiring of the employees. There's a lot there. It's a rabbit hole. I won't go there. So I basically reached out to Tim. We reached out to Tim, re-engaged, realized that he could help us with coaching and marketing. So really what happened there was trying to restructure things. It was a tremendous help for him to identify the problems that I was the problem, doing everything myself, right? Ideal team player, recommendations, things to do, how to hire, working with the hires, the employees, coaching one of the employees or operations manager, really curating, structuring the business to be more organized and to try and get to a point where our life was a little bit more realistic. And meanwhile, so effectively, it's like having open heart surgery, but the patient is awake, right? And still has to use its arms and do things. So it was very difficult. And in that transition, it was amazing that we had Tim to lean on. And also at the same time, because we were growing and scaling, it was tremendously difficult. And the pandemic was involved in that particular part of the late end of it. But for us, it got to a point when we got into that 2022 timeframe where we recognized that there was a lot of people that wanted to get into the industry themselves, and there was offers that were being made. Debbie was sucked into the business so much more that it was actually inhibiting her to do more real estate sales. And the two of us just looked at each other and we were like, now's the time. And we made the decision, like, right now is the time. Even though we just went through scaling up and hiring more employees and more, we were getting ready for the next phase of growth when we realized the market was about to shift and that possibly we're going to see some difficulty with the short-term vacation rentals with occupancy and supply. So we took the opportunity at that time, which was an entire 90 days, which Tim helped with also, of us realizing, oh my gosh, we have to get all the financials in line. We have to present this as best as we can to the investors for the exit. But the timing for us was perfect because of the challenges of the employees, the challenges of her being pulled away from what she loves to do in real estate. And it allowed us to actually do the exit. And the back end of that for me was very difficult because when you're on a gerbil wheel that never stops spinning and then all of a sudden it stops spinning, for me, that was an interesting unwind.
Let's take a short break. I've got a question for you. Are you feeling overwhelmed by challenges in your leadership role? This is Tim Winders from Seek, Go, Create, and I understand how tough it can be. As an executive coach, I've guided numerous leaders through their toughest moments. Whether it's navigating team dynamics, strategic decision-making, or personal growth, I'm here to help you overcome these hurdles. My clients have broken through barriers they once thought impossible, and you can too. Don't let challenges hold you back. Visit timwinders.com/coaching and book a free discovery coaching call with me directly on my calendar. That's timwinders.com/coaching. Together, we'll forge a path to greater success and satisfaction. Now, back to Seek, Go, Create. Yeah, one thing, and maybe you do this, Michael, and I've got something I want to follow up with Debbie, but I know you don't want to give exact numbers or anything like that unless you want to, but what can you tell us about the financials of the acquisition type companies during that time, the industry at that time? And I'll say it this way, you could agree or disagree, how y'all's timing was almost perfect. Just say whatever you want to say about that, because some people are going, yeah, it sounds like they may have unloaded their company. I don't know. I don't think so. But anyway, what can you say about that that might provide some information to someone listening in?
Go ahead there.
I think that for us, in interesting, when we first started the company, we really didn't think about we wanted to sell the company. We really were building it to sustain it, to have it more of a residual income so that as I don't know if we'll ever retire, but it would be residual income, but we couldn't get Michael out of the day to day. So the timing for us was we really nailed the top of the market as far as selling a vacation rental company. It was a time where it was just a very hot industry. Our area was one of the hottest vacation rental markets in the country. And we really knew that we had to get a number that was going to make sense for us to sell. We probably got, and Michael could tell me if I'm wrong, we got probably double of what we normally would have gotten. Now, um, had we had 400 properties, yeah, we could have probably really retired and traveled and whatnot. But I think for us, it really gave us a good nest egg. It put some cash in the bank. We've been through the ups and downs, and so for us, it was really nice to have a nest egg to be able to do other things, even start planning for retirement or what slowing down may look like. But yeah, it would have been a lot less had we either sold prior or after.
Yeah, the timing, there is the Airbnb craze, right? So all of a sudden everybody's locked down and people were like, oh, just get an Airbnb. And everybody was traveling out of state. Travel was going nuts domestically. And then what happened was private equity started paying attention and companies outside the industry started paying attention. Airbnb was going through its IPO. A lot of eyeballs hit the industry, short-term vacation rentals, whatever you want to call it. So the acquisitions that traditionally have been 4 to 5 times EBITDA, that would traditionally be the payout. There's different ways to actually structure it, but that's one of the metrics that's used. When we were going to market, companies were getting 8, 9, 10 times. And even the company that we used to do the transaction, they were astounded that when we put a number out there, it was pretty much met. You were astounded, Tim. So it was pretty much 10 times EBITDA. So we sold with 41 properties. And the guy that did our transaction, he's like, guys, you're getting paid like you had 82. You're basically getting paid like in a traditional market. It's like 80. And Tim, now here we are 2 years and a month later from our exit, and we're back to 4 to 5 times EBITDA for the acquisition. So
Yeah,
we got lucky on the exit.
it was beautiful. I want to go back to something that Debbie, there's a couple questions I want to ask on this before we move on. Debbie, you brought up a term that comes up often, and it's residual income. You and I, we met probably around a business, multi-level marketing, stuff like that, 25 plus years ago that talked about residual income. I interact with people all the time and talk about residual income. Do we really think that residual income is a reality, or is it some kind of pipe dream that because y'all were not, we did a lot with this vacation rental business and it was awesome. And we'll talk about a few more things, but there was nothing residual income about it.
No, that's funny. You're
It is,
right.
but
And
it isn't. It's funny, but it's not funny.
I think we were just like this hands off and had somebody actually running the company. Maybe once a day, twice a day, Michael would get a phone call. Then maybe it would have been residual. But when you're in it and you're day to day and you're working in the business, on the business, you're right. It really, I don't, maybe they're really, maybe I'm hopeful that one day we'll find residual income, but you're right. It's tough.
And the other thing that I observed, and we had a lot of discussions about this, but I see this with a lot of leaders, a lot of people that are talented, that they can do almost, air quotes for those listening in, I'm doing air quotes if you're watching the video, they could do almost everything that's involved with the business. And air quotes again, they could almost do it better than anyone else that they could hire. So that then opens up this kind of trap that Michael becomes everything, customer service and all of that kind of stuff. And Debbie, even though she's got her real estate over here, she's running the finances, overseeing the money, making sure that Michael's trying to stay healthy and all that kind of stuff. And I do wonder if sometimes it's difficult. We ran into it. I'll let y'all respond to this. That it's sometimes difficult to move from that place where we're doing almost everything to hiring people and just getting beyond that barrier. We discussed it a lot. Either one of y'all want to comment or respond to that, those thoughts?
I will say that in that process, probably the most beneficial thing that I had was one, that we had a previous relationship with you, one with the multi-level. Then when we were doing real estate, I buy houses type stuff and renovations, leasing, et cetera. So we had all this previous business history with you, and now we're coaching. So I was more open to hear you with guarded language say, you're the problem and you're the bottleneck. And you need to be willing to get out of the way, get out of your own way. So, like a lot of that coaching and then hiring the right people, not micromanaging them, and understanding that whole process was a huge part of actually scaling the business. The exit of the business could not have been done as well as it was if we hadn't met you halfway into building the business. It is that simple. It would have been messy and we would not have been as structured as we were leading into that time frame when it was the perfect time to sell.
So one thing, and then I've got a follow-up question related to that for Debbie, but Michael, I think this would be a good time. And I want you to just share whatever you're willing to share on this. There were along the way health challenges that you dealt with. I'm going to ask Debbie to say something about this too. So be careful what you say, Michael. What can you share about that? Because listen, it's one thing to just be scaling a company and trying to hire people and have the phone ringing all the time. That's one thing. Another thing is when it starts impacting some personality, when causes some health issues to rear up. But I think it's important for business owners, leaders that are listening in to hear you share a little bit about that journey, because that was some of the discussion we would have, had very little to do with business. It was like, we got to make sure Michael stays healthy. Say a little bit about that. And then Debbie's going to follow up and tell the real story after you share whatever you share.
So it's a two-pronged situation. One is actual health issue from the perspective of blood work was showing I was completely drained adrenals, completely drained testosterone. And I kept getting told, like, we could throw supplements at you left and right. You are on that phone, which is a trigger, and it's triggering the dopamine. It's triggering you constantly 12, 14, 15 hours a day that you cannot get to a state of recovery. Your body can't get to a state of recovery. And then there's the whole secondary wave that happened during the pandemic where the stress level, for a multitude of reasons, and I could go down rabbit holes, which I won't, but it was in that time frame having a business that was impacted dramatically because we were in travel and we were in a state where they shut down vacation rentals. The stress level got to a point where I tried to calm my nerves at the end of the night and just ended up drinking too much several times, which led to a cycle of that was the way I was calming myself down after the entire night was over. A lot of times after Debbie had gone to bed, but that was creating a whole new set of problems. And those were two separate health issues. And one was directly related to the stress that was involved with interfacing with the public and employees during the pandemic.
Yeah, 24/7. And just one thing on that, and then you can respond, Michael, then go to Debbie. It wasn't as if, I don't consider you to have an addictive nature or anything like that, but you were really just attempting to slow things down is what my observation. We talked about this. You and I tried to discuss it, and then I think, got some other help, but aren't necessarily an addictive natured person, but you were just attempting to slow things down was my observation. Is that kind of what was going on, or?
It was. And when you're refunding millions of dollars of advanced deposits and at the same time paying out employees and being shut down by the government effectively, it was something that I just didn't cope with. I got it under control, but during that time frame, right in the midst of the pandemic, it absolutely was very trying. And then to watch other people around us talk about how they were shutting their businesses down that they had for heading back to Alabama to shut down their restaurant because they couldn't operate and they were bleeding out. And watching all that happen, trying to figure out how we were going to survive, that was very difficult and very trying. So it was a short period of time in the grand scheme of things, but it was something that was definitely difficult to navigate.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Debbie, what's your perspective on all that? Because I know that listen, we talk about issues that like Michael would have gone through there, but I know it was fairly gut wrenching for you also. And so from your perspective, what was going on?
It was tough. It was tough not only for me, but to see him going through what he was going through. And as we're refunding millions of dollars, and it took probably twice as long for the banks to refund money. People are calling Michael, screaming at him, cussing him out, telling him he's lying. He didn't refund the money. And it was like people just lost their mind. And look, nobody knew what was going to happen. We had just worked for 7, almost 8 years growing our business, and we didn't know if, like, overnight we were gonna be done, and it was for us going through that as well, as other people actually had to shut down, we were very grateful that we could continue to pay our employees and wait it out. But the stress between us, even as husband and wife, was not good. We were arguing all the time. And it was we were like a gerbil going in circles with nowhere to go and no way to get out. And so it was Michael and I had some tough conversations during that time, and he did get some other help, and I think from a health perspective, it was the right thing for us to do as far as sell the company.
So one thing related to that, and I want to talk about that whole March of 2020 time in just a moment. Y'all opened up that. But Debbie, something that I always observed, and you and I discussed this quite often, was that you were a successful real estate agent and y'all had started this vacation rental company because they seemed to mesh together and fit together well. And we still would say that, I believe. But yet it is very difficult to spin a lot of plates. We all would claim we're multitaskers, and I could run the finances of a vacation rental company and run a lot of the operations and smile and say hello and go show people property on a Sunday afternoon when they're visiting this beautiful area. I know a little bit behind the curtain. Some people may not, but talk about how challenging it is to wear all those hats. Because you and I talked about just things as simple as following up on some leads that would come in because there's just exhaustion from running 40 something companies and keeping up with everything and all of that. So anything you want to say about that? Because now you're a couple years away, and I've seen a thriving that we didn't see for a while. Hopefully that's fair to say.
It is fair to say, and I think we do think we can multitask, and I think you've really brought to our attention, you know what, you really can't. And I think when we first started, look, I'm very grateful we started. I'm grateful we sold. So we have learned a lot about the rental market and the ins and outs. So I'm glad we took the journey. If we did it all over again, which we won't, but if we did it all over again, there are certainly things we would have done differently, but we didn't have the money to pay people at the time to do things differently. So I think as you fast forward, I couldn't, I'm a type A, I'm a kind of a, not, I am a control freak. And so when it came to the finances of the company, I had a lot of trouble thinking about letting go and hiring somebody. It's very easy to get caught up, and then all of a sudden money in your escrow account is gone. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to sleep at night. In the almost 10 years we had the company, was never ever late paying an owner. Never. That was, and we pay every week to our vendors. And it was something I was very proud of because our vendors were loyal, our owners appreciated it. And yet, again, I'm sure, and I know other companies have people that handle the money, but it was doing that at night and then trying, and I use that word try, which I don't like. I was trying to do my real estate during the day, and it starts to wear, everything just starts to wear you down where we don't really realize it until we're looking back. And I say that because I thought I could do everything. And I thought, yes, you've got to be happy and cheery and on point, especially when I'm talking with real estate clients. And it's hard when you're tired. It's hard to pick up the phone and really want to do something that I love to do. And so after all this time, Tim, you are right. It is very difficult to multitask.
So we're recording this. We'll put a timestamp on something they tell you not to. We're recording this kind of in midsummer 2024. About 2 years ago is when you exited. So we've got 24 months there. And then about 2 years prior to that, we had this event that was COVID worldwide. I had somebody call it the other day global sickness. It was this global sickness event, which actually is more accurate than almost anything I've heard. But I've even shared this before. I don't know if I've shared it on the podcast, but I vividly remember March of 2020, some of the phone calls that we were having right around that time. It was like March 13th. Is that your birthday, Michael? In it right around that time?
Yeah.
And it was a Friday, the 13th that year, I remember. And Thursday night, I believe we got on a call. I'd flown back from Orlando for some conference. The world was shutting down around us. You guys had a vacation rental company. I think we thought there could be issues, but I don't think we really understood what was about to happen. Y'all have already shared a little bit, but let's go back almost 4+ years and let's talk about specifically how you were able to handle that week. I want to say one thing real quick before y'all, either whoever wants to jump in. I do think that one of the reasons y'all survived was because of Michael's diligence in the way he handled property owners and vacationers and things like that. And because of the diligence in the way, Debbie, you handled the finances and those payments to vendors and things like that, because other people that were just a little bit looser and sloppier didn't make it. So let's talk just for a few minutes about March of 2020, as much as we maybe get cold sweats. Anyway, which one of y'all want to start and give a perspective of where you're at and what was going on then, and maybe some lessons learned?
I'm interested to hear her comment. Let's hear it, Debbie, from your perspective. We never talk about this, Tim.
It's honestly, it's hard to believe it's been over 4 years now.
Right.
And I think one thing I do remember, Michael and I were out walking and I'm looking to my left. We have a beautiful pond right next to our home. And we were out walking and just trying to think and talk about everything that was happening. And I said to Michael, I said, this is going to be the most beautiful spring break ever. And it was. The weather was absolutely gorgeous. And I think that it was very eerie. It was eerily quiet in one aspect, and yet it was eerily scary because nobody knew what was going to happen. And again, we're thinking, when are we going to make money? When we had no idea from the rental perspective. And even at that time, real estate, a little further along, I think it was the governor, whoever deemed real estate is necessary. So there were certain precautions we had to take, and we could still share property, and we had to wear masks and wipe things down at one point. But from the rental side, nobody knew when anybody was going to be able to come back and stay in a vacation rental. Was it a month, 6 months, a year? And all we're thinking about is, okay, we certainly refunded everybody's money. And now it's like, how are we going to make any money? What are we going to do to survive? And I think that was also probably the second scariest, most stressful time in our life. Financial turmoil, I think, was probably the first, but this was really either a close first or a second. And it was the fear of the unknown, not only for us, but for everybody.
Yeah, I want to bring up something then, Michael. I want you to say something here. Here's what I remember. I remember having a conversation, and Michael, I want you to give more detailed numbers on this. Most people may not realize that in March of the year, a place that spring break and summer is so critical, people reserve their vacation rental place. They pay a deposit. Some of them pay in advance and other things like that. And so all of that money y'all had, hopefully, sitting in an account. And then all of a sudden they're telling people the beaches are, there's variables on what all was going on there. People can't travel. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I remember vividly this conversation. It might have been that Thursday. It's like, okay, our agreements say we could keep these deposits, but is that the right thing to do? And from a pure integrity standpoint, I was so impressed that it really wasn't a long conversation to say, we don't know all the answers, but we've got to refund everybody's money. And Michael, you can talk about the actual dollars of that. I used to know it. I can't recall now, but I want business owners to picture refunding people in the amount of.
So the biggest problem we had was, you might remember this, Tim, we had at that time just one full-time employee and then some part-times. And we spend the winters here in this region paying employees while there's no revenue really coming in. So you go from October, November, December, January, February, and then you're like, here comes March. Finally, in the second week of March, we're going to get spring break. And that's when COVID hit. We had people in-house, but then all of a sudden it was, wow, pandemic here, and then the country gets shut down. And what you talked about was, we had a conversation and we're like, we can't keep this money. It'll destroy the company. Like, people will actually destroy us on social media, destroy us on every platform possible. And the right thing to do simply was to refund the money. So this was a little contentious issue with some of the owners, because they were being told by rental companies that they were going out to ski in the Midwest and Utah, et cetera. And they were told that you could come and still enjoy the condo, even though the slopes are all shut down. And we're keeping your money. So we didn't do that, but there were companies that had to do that because those companies did use advanced deposits to pay through the winter, whereas we never touched the escrow money. So from a financial standpoint, we always ran the company like with trust accounting in mind. And we also had a savings beyond that, so that our operations manager freaked out on day one. And we were like, you don't have to worry. We have already pre-planned for a hurricane and sustain ourselves for 6 months to a year without revenue. So even though we were freaking out because we weren't sure if the company would survive, we knew at least short term we could operationally roll. The most difficult part of that was, as we refunded the money, what we didn't understand was there was a cog, right? We didn't understand that the merchant account wasn't refunding the money. They wanted to see our bank accounts to make sure they weren't returning the money back to the credit card companies, to those other people, until they could guarantee that we had the funds in the bank to actually secure all. There were things that you don't think about because the business that we run goes in one direction. So all of a sudden, a bicycle that you ride forward, for the first time in history, now you had to ride a bicycle backwards. And it was very difficult to actually unwind those transactions. The most difficult thing was, you have March through the summer, the end of July, is pretty much 70% of your revenue. And now all of a sudden, we were refunding all of that time frame without knowing whether or not it would rebook, when in our particular state would reopen to vacation rentals, which were banned during that time frame. And it made it worse because every 2 weeks, the governor was making a decision. So we would have people book up those properties hoping that we would open, and then on Friday at 5 o'clock, not open, and then a landslide of phone calls, people wanting all their money back because they're supposed to be checking in the next day. So it was this constant, for about 2.5 months, of just uncertainty. But we constantly did the right thing. It was like, we'll give your money right back. We'll give your money right back. And it was difficult. It was absolutely challenging. And I look back at it, it was extremely stressful. But then the hardest part was the transition, right? All of a sudden, all these properties are empty because everyone's been refunded. And then the governor says, game on, we're open again. And then everybody's trapped in the United States. So all of a sudden, everybody wanted to book anything they possibly could. So the bookings were coming in. And remember, I had one employee, all they dealt with was operations, check-ins, checkouts. So all the reservation, all the phone calls, all the money, everything was on my shoulders. Debbie did what she could, but effectively I was running 24/7, but we always did the right thing. Most of our owners respected the fact that we did the right thing for the clients, the guest. And that was, in the end, that was what we looked back on. We did the right thing, what we thought was the right thing at that time, given the information.
So
Yeah,
it was probably, the dollar amount, Tim, was probably over $1 million.
Yeah, it was over $1 million. In that year, we were probably going to do 1.6 in gross revenue. So we were giving back $1 million of the 1.6, and that was a guess that we could get to the 1.6 by the end of that year.
The interesting thing there, Tim, is when the country shut down, people reacted a certain way, maybe rightfully, maybe not. And then when the country opened back up, it was the total opposite. So they couldn't give us their money fast enough. It was wild.
Yeah,
It's
crazy
wild.
times.
It was an odd time. I do remember that the fall of that year was like record setting for us. I don't know. I don't remember year end, but I do remember at the end of the year, we looked back and went, interesting. $1 million, whatever. But then we had people, there was no schools in the Atlanta area and all that. So people were loading up, going to the beach, and Florida was open. So thankfully, we're in a place like that.
We're deep, right? It was like we shut down. He had bad information. He didn't realize the amount of billions of dollars short-term vacation rentals did. When a study was presented to him, what it was going to cost the state if they didn't open by Memorial Day, he immediately flipped the switch and we were open again. But the challenge became that whole spring was so busy and my life was so chaotic. And then when it was game on, everything went 100% occupancy straight through summer, straight through fall. So when we would normally have a break, we didn't have enough employees and it just kept going straight through the holiday, straight through winter, right into the following spring break, right into the following year. And I was trying, you remember this, I was trying to hire employees and get up to speed. So what happened was I heard people talk about, I remember sitting in the house and playing arcade. I'm like, I had a completely different experience than you. For me, I never worked harder, longer, more stressful days in my entire life than the entire year of 2020 that went right into 2021. It was gangbusters. So the truth is, by the time we got to the spring of 2022, and Debbie is the one that finally was like, I don't think I could take this anymore. It's affecting my real estate. I was like, you know what? This is perfect timing. I am literally burnt out and having the hardest time presenting ourselves. And then we were worried about that Europe was going to open and the money was going to get a little bit less awesome for vacation rentals for a few years. So the timing for the exit was perfect at that time. But it was a crazy stressful time frame. And the clientele that came was used to hotels, resorts. So the clientele that came in 2020 and 2021, extremely demanding. They're used to picking up the phone and having a bellhop come take care of the problem in 30 seconds, not 30 minutes.
I remember us having a conversation about the expectations of the guests. And I remember this conversation is like, we told ourselves, this could be a trend that's not turning around anytime soon. It's not as if people are going to start saying, yeah, the grill isn't as clean as it should be. I'm okay with it. Thanks for just having a grill. No, that's not the way people were doing. Just real quick, let's move on from COVID. I don't want to spend much time on it. But Debbie, what's a quick lesson or something? We're 4 years out from that time. Anything real quick that you have like an always or never, or just something that you learned from that period of time? Anything that you'd want to share?
Wow, there's a lot of things I guess I learned, but I think it's really just having the faith that everything's going to work out for how it's supposed to work out. And I do believe things happen for a reason. And it's easier to sit here and say that after the fact. But I think it's really, and just with what we've been through in general, I think just knowing that we're going to be okay and that whatever comes our way, we can work through it is really what I took away from it.
Yeah, that's good. How about you, Michael?
I just look at it like, I don't know what I could have done differently. There were obviously little things that happened, but I feel really good about the way we reacted. And some of that was conversations with you, Tech. And I feel good in hindsight, the way that we responded to a very difficult situation. And in the future, I would just take that as experience to take a moment, think through the consequences of not acting responsibly and with care and concern of others.
The reason that's good, and I'll go back to what Debbie said, is when I was thinking as we were just talking about this, I haven't thought about it, but dang, what a tough time. But that's just 4 years ago. 2 years later, you exited. Somebody wrote you a very nice check. Y'all did a very nice exit. It's not like y'all are still going to get money years from now. Y'all got the check. That's a good tip for people that are exiting companies, by the way. And then now 2 years later, we'll talk about this as we wrap up. Y'all are working on some new projects. You've got a lot of great things going. You're going to start taking the wisdom you've gained and possibly sharing that in different ways. So I think I love what you said, Debbie. We can't ever really know, but I think we just have to have this thought that, you know what? Somehow it's going to work out. This too shall pass. We'll get through it. Or, you know what? We'll just move on to that next realm, heaven or whatever it is for people. It's like whatever it is. Anyway, we've got a little bit of time left. What I'd love to do is I'd love to back up a little bit, maybe 25 years ish or something like that, and maybe talk a lot about y'all getting started. I was trying to remember this. Did y'all meet online?
We did. January 9th, 1999 was our first date, but we met in December of 98 online before the movie You've Got Mail was really cool. And it was matchmaker.com.
Which became .com, where
There
they
was
bought
no
it.
internet. Wait, there was no internet then, was there? Before 2000? What are y'all talking about? How did y'all meet on them? There are people that are really doing that right now. They're going, I didn't think they had the internet in the 90s.
We had internet, not like today, but yeah, we had dial. I think it was still dial up back then.
It was
Wow.
interesting responses from people too. I remember one of the parties that we met, some new people in mid 99, and they were like, "Oh, how did the two of you meet?" And we were like, "Oh, we met online." And the lady leaned forward, she grabbed my hand, she's like, "I'm so sorry it came to that." And I was like, "Oh my God." Now nobody would think that way, but it was literally like, I was like, so we started telling people, "Oh yeah, we met at a party or bar." Or
Yeah.
it was like it took us for a long time for people to like be okay with that being a way to first meet each other. But
Yeah.
it was perfect. I just moved to Atlanta. I had a friend that was actually immediately going out on dates. And I'm like, "How are you going out on dates? We just got here." And he told me about the site. Debbie was already on it. And we met up and just hit it off from the first date.
And let me mention too that I didn't have a picture because being single, of course, back then we didn't have cell phones. And so I didn't have a picture. And the only reason Michael clicked on my profile is because they randomly assign you a username. And mine was Debbie222. And the 222 had meaning to Michael, where he did a lot of stock trading back in the day and was very technical in the stock market. And 222 has to do with a actual trading pattern that he followed and was successful with, which is the only reason why I clicked on my profile.
Yeah, it was something I've traded that pattern. It's a 70% reversal pattern. It's Gartley 222. It's on page 222 of a book written in 1935. And it had so much meaning to me that when I looked at it, I was like, no photo, but I have to click because it's Debbie 222. And it was just meant to happen.
It was a financial transaction even way back then.
I know we met you at a comedy club.
Oh, wait. And the other thing, Tim, is so I had been on there for a few months and my membership expired. And I said, and the way they do it, and I won't go down a rabbit hole, but they keep sending you messages. So and so messaged you. So and so messaged you. So, okay, I'll extend for another month or whatever it was. And maybe it was $25. Michael gets me on his 2-week trial.
Free trial.
He had a time frame. I got 2 weeks. Let me see what I could do with this thing. 222. I'm going to roll the dice.
Yeah.
All right.
Crazy.
Very cool. Because I know that it was right around that time that we met. We were all having fun, learning a lot of cool stuff in that odd multi-level business, the Amway business. And I don't say bad stuff about it. I wouldn't be wanting to do it right now. But shortly after that, you guys started real estate. And I think I was around, but I'm having a hard time recalling it. One of y'all tell me about how real estate became part of it's all that y'all do almost now, but how did that real estate thing get started?
So we ended up taking a class to learn about investing. And Michael maybe remembers how or why we took the class. I just remember meeting you, Tim, and seeing you at some networking event.
Georgia.
It was something to do with real estate investing. And I was talking to you after, and I was a little taken back. What are you doing here? Because we were doing the network marketing with you.
Mhm.
And then I get home that night and I'm like, oh my God, you're never going to believe who I bumped into. And I told Michael, and I'm like, call him, just call Tim. And at that point, we really hadn't had a lot of conversations with you. We knew you through the business. We were on different teams, so we didn't have as much interaction. And then that's how we got started with you in real estate. I'll let Michael continue, but it was
Yeah, so it was funny because she told me, she's like, "Yeah, I saw Tim." And I was like, "What? Tim?" Because, like, with the business, and we weren't even in the direct line, right? You were just
Uh,
somebody that was good and you were on stage and you were just so conversationalist. You weren't like salesy. You were just, you would speak the truth. And Debbie and I wanted to work together. That was one of the reasons why we were looking for network marketing. We desperately wanted to work together as a couple. And we saw you, we saw Glory, and we saw other couples also that we just were like, I would love to get to that point that I could work with my wife in business. And then what ended up happening was is we did end up transitioning to look at, because we're both working, but we transitioned to look at real estate as a way to start to supplement and get more income. And that's when she bumped into you. And to her point, it was like, oh, wow, he's looking at real estate too, even though he's in the multi-level and doing well. So that was the spark. That's what led us to start talking. And then we started to coordinate with some other marketing stuff. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But the whole idea was I already had great respect for you and Glory from what you had been able to do as a couple in that business. And I told Debbie, I was like, we need to latch on to this. Tim, and you had your sister who was already deep into real estate. So I was like, this is amazing. Let's try and work with Tim and Glory and really make this happen. And that started the journey or continued us on that real estate journey.
so one of the things you did is that you were obviously in that Atlanta market at that time, and you did that, I think, for a few years, and then you transitioned. So I'd love for y'all to talk about what all you were doing in the Atlanta market, and then what provoked, what was the catalyst or whatever to move down then 20-ish years ago, 2004, down to that area of Florida. Because a lot of people, they get started in real estate and they feel locked in and then they don't ever transition. So, and I do, some of these conversations are coming back to me now. I actually remember going, yeah, I remember that. We had a lead gen company and y'all were getting parts of it and stuff like that. I mean, we divvied that up. It was one of the best businesses ever, by the way. But
oh,
talk a little bit about what you did in the Atlanta market and then the transition down to that 30A or that Rosemary area.
So basically, at that time, I was doing more of the, like I had Mike buys houses, fast signs, and then right next to them was lease to own or rent, right? So I was following your business model where you had people calling that had product they were trying to get out of housing, but you also had people that really needed places to stay. So that marketing arm of doing that allowed you to then procure properties with contracts, which Debbie was involved with, then putting contractors in place to ready it up for either the person you were able to find right away with money and they needed a place, or to have that inventory to either rent, lease option, or owner finance. Right. So we followed a lot of what you were doing at that time. Plus, we had the I buy houses leads that were coming in. That was an incredible business to be able to have that. That let us do for 3.5 years. We were in the trenches doing that. And then she finally left her position and was helping me out. And so we were no longer in corporate. We were fully working together. And that ultimately led to when we came down here. But I don't know if Debbie wants to lead into, there were other things too that we did partnerships with other partners outside of UTEM in Atlanta.
I think doing what we did in Atlanta helped me prepare for real estate here. So I wasn't licensed in Atlanta. We moved here in '04, came down, visited the area, drove really the coast from Pensacola to Cape
Was.
San Blas, and really had a tough time deciding where to go. And so after we moved down, we realized, really with your encouragement too, you're like, if we're going to do real estate in Florida, you might as well get your license. Let us at least get the commissions and that sort of thing. And so that's how that started. And I think all the experience that I had with flipping and buying and selling and renting and leasing, that really helped in a different aspect for my experience. Now I just had to learn the product here. And so it was really a kind of a natural transition for me. And I finally found what I really loved, because when I was in corporate America, I was miserable. I really did not enjoy what I was doing. I should have left, looked for another job years prior, but it took me a long time to really find something that I enjoyed.
Mm. So that's been 20 plus years. And when y'all hit the ground down there in the beautiful part of Florida, it was the real estate market was fairly frothy all over. It's been frothy-ish in y'all's area a good bit during that time. It was still a few years though. Y'all did real estate and then you started the vacation rental company. It was 10 years after that, right? 5, 7, 8, 9 years later?
Yeah,
9
9 years.
years later. So were y'all just buying, selling, flipping, doing all that kind of stuff during that time?
No, the prices had moved too much here in Florida, and the business model that you taught us in Atlanta, we really couldn't do here. And so I really just delved into selling real estate for other people and helping. And because of my knowledge and my background, I really do deal with a lot of investors. And Michael was doing some other things, and we got here at the tail end of the market, and it was wild for a short period of time. And then 2005, the market stopped. It was around probably June of 2005. It's like musical chairs stopped, and a lot of people got caught standing up. It really wasn't until about 2007 until prices started declining into the financial crisis of '08, and then prices kept going down. When we look back, 2010, 2011 was truly the bottom of our market from a price standpoint. And then ever since then, we had the oil spill in 2010, and our market really started coming back up very slowly every year. And then, of course, COVID. After about 8, 9, 10 years, people are like, okay, where's the pullback? Where's the pullback? They kept thinking it was another market cycle. And then COVID hits and everybody's, okay, here it is. Here's the pullback we're waiting on. And it everywhere, not just in our area, in the country, the world, it did the exact opposite.
The thing that's fascinating to me with all of these ups and downs, and we've had a lot of conversations, and we like to think we're really smart, and Michael and I can really go down rabbit holes on the economy and this and all that. I hate to admit this, but I am probably wrong much, much more than I'm. It's like, oh my gosh, we were thinking COVID. We were thinking like we could be dealing with some economic collapse with the country. Oh no, they could print all kinds of money and take care of that. And I think we've gotten a good breadth of how much you guys have experienced, specifically in business and other things, but specifically in the real estate markets and things like that. And now at this stage, you guys, I know Debbie, you are with Sotheby's and you're doing things there, and Michael's also doing some things with you there. But I know that you guys are getting to a place where you're ready to share some of this wisdom, some of the knocks, some of the great stuff, some of the hard stuff that you've experienced, because y'all have got investor experience, you've got building, you've got development, you've got a lot of stuff. Tell me what's next for you guys, what's coming up, what's happening now. And none of it's necessarily definitive. I know some of it y'all are still in the formative stages, and we've talked about maybe doing some strategies on some of it, but either Michael or Debbie start and then the other one can finish up. And then I've got one or two more questions before we finish up.
Really, what we're doing is we're leaning into the fact that now we have a decade of vacation rental in the trenches experience with understanding of ROI, knowing which products perform better than others. During that entire time frame, it helped us really get dialed in. Debbie alluded to the fact that she went into real estate traditionally and I was doing other things. I was working with vacation rental companies and doing marketing and photography, video, and I saw how things changed. I saw the products that did better. So what we're doing now is just what she was doing initially, except now we have all the experience that I had, so she can lean on me for numbers. And then I'll go out with her when she has clients that are looking at multiple properties and I can talk numbers from an investment standpoint. So for the two of us, it makes us stronger as a team to be able to look at a lot of these as assets. I don't go out when somebody's just looking for a second home for themselves, but when she has clients that are specifically investors, that's when I come out and I additionally, give my insight as to which one of those will actually do better on a long-term basis and why. So that's really what we're doing now. And we're leaning into, which Debbie will talk about, trying to get to other market with other agents to let other agents in other markets know that if they refer business to us as a team, we could take care of their clients here locally.
And we do pay referral fees to agents.
Good. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, Debbie? Because I know y'all are looking to do some video and audio and just share. And also anything else?
Yeah, we're going to be launching a podcast that will help people. We want to do some more video, and we're doing developments. I have a business partner, and we're building spec homes, and we really want to help people understand, even so much as with the rentals, a king bed. If there's no king beds, put a king bed in the house, and that's one tip. And so there's so many little things that people can do to help improve the income of a home that doesn't have to cost a lot of money. But it's you don't know what you don't know, and we're just wanting to help share and help educate people.
So
Yeah.
Tim, I can say it's an FAQ, right? So like we have the same conversation over and over again. So selfishly, we thought if we create a podcast talking about how to buy vacation rentals in this market for income, it would be smart for us to just do a brain dump with a lot of the high level basic things so that they could watch 20 or 30-minute episodes, either video or audio, and learn about some of the real basics that help them to come back to us and work further with us. So it's going to help people from kindergarten up phase, but then there's some expert stuff that's sprinkled in there as well. So and it's also going to help us cut down the amount of time that we have to re-educate everyone on not only the area, but the investment side.
One other cool thing, I wanted to ask this, but I'm going to request that y'all do some episodes on husbands and wives working together, because as I was sitting here thinking, and we just went over this history, y'all miraculously were brought together while Michael was on his free trial with what became Match.com. And you essentially are very similar to Gloria and I. Y'all have really been working together ever since that. So I think that would be a really cool discussion, because a lot of people want to know how to do that. We don't have time to go into that here. Where do people need to find you, connect with you, either socials or websites or anything, or if they're interested in the area and want to come look at property or talk about it or anything, where can people find you just to stay up to date on things that are Michael and Debbie?
The easiest way probably is to go to my website at debbiejames.com. And from there, we'll have links to Facebook and Instagram, our phone numbers. And so I think, if you look us up on Facebook, you'll certainly find us. I think I'm Debbie James 30A, and Michael is
A moving target. Just go to debbiejames.com.
Yeah, Michael, some of this, after you've been through the battles, it's like, I'm not that active on social.
Not
yeah.
exactly.
so debbiejames.com.
Sure. Final question here. We are seek, go, create, those three words. I don't even know if I prepped y'all for this, so this could be a little bit of a curveball. Seek, go, or create, those three words. I'm going to ask each one of you to pick one of those words and why. That just means more, resonates more. So seek, go, or create. And Debbie, I'm going to start with you because I could see Michael's wheels turning. So seek, go, or create. Which one do you choose and why? And then Michael, you're next, and then I'll wrap up and we'll be finished.
Gosh, it's hard to choose just one. I was hoping you'd start with Michael on that one. I would have to say create. And I say that because we can create just about anything we put our minds to. I think for me growing up, my mom would always tell me you can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. And so to create, again, I think easier said than done, but I think because look, we live in a free country, we're grateful to be able to live in the United States of America, and we really can create and do anything we want to do.
For me, it's seek. So I'm always thirsting for knowledge and seeking wisdom and constantly on the hunt. So for me, seek is there. As much as create is a hard second, for me, if I really get you didn't prep us for this. I had to actually think about it. I think I was originally going to go with create, but in the end, my shtick is seek. So I would say seek.
Very good. Man, I'm so glad that we scheduled this. We've known each other for some time. We're on episode, I don't know, 270 something now. And I'm
Oh, wow.
excited that I was able to get my good friends, people I've worked with, people that I've watched them do so many cool things, go through some challenges also, to have a conversation here at Seek Go Create. What we're titling now the leadership journey. And I think we've definitely been able to discuss that while we're here. I appreciate everyone listening in. Go check out what Mike and Debbie are doing. And if you stay connected here, you might hear updates on it, I'm sure. But go check them out. And if you've just been listening in and you want to support what we're doing here, we welcome that support. We welcome your financial support. Go to seekgocreate.com/support. That's seekgocreate.com/support. And you could go give us money. We'll take it. And we appreciate all that. Again, thanks for listening in. We have new episodes every Monday on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. Until next time, continue being all that you were created to be.